All right, welcome to the A's Philosophy YouTube channel. I am A's Philosophy, and we're going to try to see if we can get a discussion tonight. For me, it's night, and that will depend on if people join. But if no one joins, then I do have some thoughts that I wanted to share. It has been, I think, a few weeks since my debate on standing for truth about justification in Christianity. And give me one second here. Let me see if I can. I need to fix the audio. Um, so it's been a couple weeks, a few weeks. Let me see. When exactly was that? I should have done this before I started. Uh, when was the debate? Um, 3 weeks ago. Exactly, November 22nd. So yeah, it's been almost a month. Wow, time flies. And I'm still not ready to give my thoughts on it, just because I'm waiting a little bit. Um, as far as the debate itself, I've already kind of stated that it could have been better. I could have said things in a better way or highlighted some things, uh, or it was certainly imperfect, but I feel like I achieved my goals. I made my points and was able to establish my arguments pretty well without being challenged too significantly. At some point, I might do a full review and explain and do that. But as far as really, what I'm more interested in is seeing kind of the response, because I know a lot of so-called like big players watch Standing for Truth YouTube channel. Just look at the people that have been on that platform in the debates and in other contexts. And a lot of them are people who do have pretty sizable followings. And I've seen them very frequently, comment on the debates on Standing for Truth YouTube channel. Obviously, the ones they participate in, but also just reviewing them because a lot of important figures appear on that channel and have debates and people talk about it. So I know these people watch this channel and follow it, but I continue to be now. I don't see everything that's going on out there, so there's a chance I just straight up missed some of it. But I do think that the response is interesting. And I am going to wait a little bit before I actually make any comments, because I just want to make sure that enough time has passed where if people do want to basically respond to it, then they have an opportunity to do so. And you would think that it's almost been a month, so it won't be much longer, but that I'll wait like this. But for now, I still just want to see if anything materializes that I'm kind of expecting. But the response so far has been interesting, and again, I just want to reserve comment for right now on that, just because I want to make sure I'm seeing everything clearly and that enough time has gone by. So maybe in about a week or so, I'll be more clear about my feelings on it and the debate itself. But yeah, so this broadcast will be for basically anyone who maybe saw that debate or has seen anything that I've said, wants to interact with me on Christian doctrine. Uh, if if someone joins who's not a Christian, we can talk about other things. But I am interested in hearing the opinions of people who watch the debate or have just listened to me in general and were struck by what I said. someone if someone like that is able to join. Now, again, the chances of someone like that seeing that I'm having a stream and joining is quite low. So I'm not expecting that to necessarily happen. But I did want to put this out there as an opportunity for anyone who falls into that category, and really just to get something going, because my channel has been lacking in content recently, and a reason for that is this basically the busyness outside of things. This channel has always just kind of been uh, something I do when I am able to, because I think that these topics are important. So I wish I could dedicate more time to this channel and provide more content and opportunities, but it just doesn't look like right now is the best time to do that. That being said, I do want to do as much as I can, and I do want to do more debates as well, because I feel like those are a good opportunity for me to test my ideas against someone who's serious and basically is willing to uh, is willing to take on the arguments and see. Now I've debated Praise I Am on the deity of Christ and Charles Jennings from the Layman's Seminary, and I kind of have respect for them, because my viewpoints are uh, somewhat fringe within Christianity, and it's easy to just dismiss someone like that, especially if you feel like they could be something of a challenge. But those two people didn't do it. Now I've been interacting with Praise and Charles for a long, long time. So for years, even before I started doing content on my own channel. So it was interesting to get a chance to actually have a formal debate with them without being blocked and muted. And I think I did pretty well. So we'll see if anyone else is willing to step up. But again, and it looks like something else might be materializing, but I won't speak on that right now. Again, as I've said earlier, I want to kind of wait a little bit. But again, if there's anyone who I'm just going to kind of put this stream out there as an opportunity for people who have saw the debates and want an opportunity to learn more, or perhaps even challenge, because obviously I just don't want people to join and just agree with me. So this is one of the main reasons that I put these debates, these discussions out there, is for people who have heard what I've said, wherever it may be, on whatever forum, my own channel or elsewhere, and are interested, intrigued, or doubtful, skeptical in some way. So we'll wait. We'll see if something like that materializes. I don't want to be accused of, like some of these people out there kind of hide behind their channels. I don't want to do that. They take pot shots, and then they don't accept challenges. So, all right. In the meantime, let's actually I want to review some articles that I think are interesting about these topics, and these will basically be me. If someone wants to join and have a discussion, is the primary objective. But in the meantime, while we're waiting for that, we can review some articles that I think are interesting and kind of are relevant to the things we discuss on this channel. Share screen here. All right, there we go. All right, this article is from scienceandculture.com, which used to be called Evolution News and Views, but it's basically the site for the Discovery Institute. And the title of the article is Beyond Fine-Tuning, Why the Laws of Nature Indicate Design. Excuse me. And I've actually been thinking this for a long time, and I've used this in arguments before against atheists. And right away, the idea is that how when people are debating the existence of God, one of the things we often turn to is, the universe itself and how it came into existence. Was it created? Did it always exist? So you get into these discussions about the Big Bang and where did the Big Bang come from? Where did the singularity come from? Where did the matter come from? Where did the energy come from? Was it always there? Was it in a singularity? Was it in some other form? Was it measurable? Did the laws of physics apply to it at that time? But so people get into a discussion about where did the matter come from? But one thing that I think is really, really problematic for the atheistic viewpoint is that the laws of nature are constant. And as far as we can tell, immutable. There's no evidence that they change over time. When I talk about the laws of nature, I'm talking about gravity, electromagnetism, the nuclear forces, and things like that. They seem to just be what they are, and they don't change over time. Now, even if you want to say that the matter is eternal, you still have to explain that. Why there are these laws of nature in the first place that are constant and immutable. And that doesn't just you can have matter. You can have physical objects, but how do they behave? How do they interact with one another and between one another? There has to be laws in place that govern those interactions. Where do the laws come from? Why are the laws what they are? Let's read the article. You might have already heard that the laws that govern our universe are finely tuned for our existence, but beneath the special numbers of the universe lies an even deeper mystery: the laws of nature themselves. On a new episode of ID the Future, join host Brian Miller as he begins a two-part conversation with physicist Aaron Zimmer and mathematician Ellie Feder, I'm probably not pronouncing that correctly, Feder, host of the Physics to God podcast, as they discuss their new work arguing for intelligent cause based on the qualitative structure of reality's rules. The dream of finding a unique, logically necessary theory of everything has failed, which leaves an intriguing question: why these specific laws? Zimmer and Feder explain why fundamental forces like gravity and complex systems like quantum mechanics are uniquely designed to produce a complex universe featuring atoms, molecules, stars, and life. The new argument focuses on the fundamental qualitative structure of the laws of nature rather than finely tuned quantities. Zimmer and Feder argue these laws are not logically necessary, debunking the idea that a unique theory of everything could explain them. Instead, the laws are uniquely designed to produce a complex universe. As examples, Zimmer and Feder mention gravity's attractive force necessary for forming stars and galaxies, and the way opposite charges attract in electromagnetism, a crucial prerequisite for the existence of stable atoms and molecules. They also discuss the intrinsic weirdness of quantum mechanics, like the inclusion of an imaginary number in the Schrödinger equation. Allowing atoms to be stable indicate the laws have a specific purpose. Since scientists acknowledge that many other mathematically consistent sets of laws are possible, Zimmer and Feder argue that this specialization points to an intelligent cause that acted with the goal in mind. Combined with the arguments for fine-tuning, this new argument about the qualities of the laws of nature contribute to a comprehensive case for intelligent design in every fundamental aspect of the cosmos. I think this is really a concept that the atheists need to address, because so far, going back into the history of the discussion between theism and atheism, the discussion has been about the origin of matter itself, and where did matter come from? How did matter arise? And the energy also associated with it. But this really is a more fundamental question in my and problematic view for the atheists in my mind. How on earth did these laws of nature come to be what they are? Why do these laws exist? Because even if you have matter, there still has to be laws of nature governing how that matter interacts with other matter and within itself. So it's not enough just to explain where the matter came from, which is a difficult enough problem in itself. You also have to explain what, like, how can there be these laws that govern the nature of matter? Why is it just like this? It could have been an infinite number of other ways, most of which apparently are not favorable to life. In fact, the fine tuning is so specific that if it was even a little bit different, as far as we can tell, and we're talking fractions of a percentage different, and we're talking, billions of a decimal point different in any number of these natural laws, then life would not be possible, as far as we can tell. So we have Robin Hood here. Why is we don't know evidence for any gods? I'm sorry, I really do not understand what your question is asking. Are you trying to assert that we don't have any evidence for God? I think it's just poorly phrased. I can't. If you want to rephrase it, I'm really not sure what you're going for here. I think you're trying to say, why don't we have evidence for God? But maybe, English isn't your first language. I'm not sure. But are you trying to say, why don't we have evidence for God? Why is we don't know evidence for any gods? I seriously, I really do not understand what you're trying to ask there. I don't know if it's, some typos in there or what, but maybe rephrase it and I'll be able to address it. Anyways, yeah, uh, I think that's a really perplexing issue for the atheists. I really do. And I use this argument against some of the top atheists on online and elsewhere. I have a really very highly watched conversation on the line with Matt Dillahunty and Jimmy Snow, where I actually pointed this out, how they just want to argue about where the matter came from and how it was in a singularity at the Big Bang, and then the Big Bang began to expand. But they have no answer for how the laws of nature became what they are. You can't just get that from just matter existing. The laws of nature can be something else other than they are. And why isn't it some other way? Why is it exactly this way, in a way that is so perfect for life to exist? It's the existence of the laws of nature, I think, is one of the most fascinating questions in these philosophical. We do not know where matter came from. That is not evidence. Yeah, I'm not even trying to make that argument. I'm trying to say, I'm just trying to point out we don't know where the matter came from. That's true. We don't know where it came from. We don't know if it even has an origin point in time. But what I'm trying to say is there's a more fundamental question. Well, we know that matter exists, however it came here, but it's governed by immutable laws of nature. And we have no explanation for why the laws of nature are what they are. People just take it for granted that matter just behaves the way it does. Well, it could have behaved another way. The speed of light, theoretically, it seems, probably could have been something other than what it is. The strength of the forces of nature could have been something other than what they are. Why are they exactly what they are? And why are they arranged in such a way or set in such a way that life is possible? So maybe we'll listen to that. If no one wants to join the conversation, which the laws are descriptive, that's not true. The laws, if we didn't have words to describe them, they would still be what they are. The laws of nature govern the activity of matter, regardless of whether humans exist or have descriptions of them or not. The laws of nature are what they are. If every human being on the earth, disappeared and there was no description of the laws, they would still be there. They describe reality. Well, why is reality the way it is? This is what you're missing. Reality is a certain way and not another way. Reality could have been structured another way with different laws. Everything is caused by God. Well, that is one explanation, is God. I think that's a good explanation, that God set the laws this way, but there's no naturalistic explanation for why the laws of nature are what they are. Why would we think a God did it? Well, it's one possible explanation, because how would just the laws of nature just set themselves? Like, why are the laws of nature what they are? Could they have been designed that way by an intelligence? And we'd have to think about some sort of being that could do something like that, like establish, like how would you set the law of gravity as what it is? As a like how could you even do that? Like, imagine a human being demonstrate a God as possible. Well, again, I'm not trying to demonstrate that God is possible. What I'm trying to say is that there are questions that our scientific and rational minds can't answer, but would fall within the purview of what a God can do. So, again, there are a lot of people out there who want to say that science has explained reality. No, I'm not assuming God exists. I'm putting it out there as a theoretical possibility. What I'm trying to say here is that naturalism has no, as far as we've been able to determine, naturalism has no explanation for this. So it leaves open the possibility that there could have been some intelligence, because how would a purely natural reality establish itself with immutable laws? This is a really fundamental question. Every answer we have was found through science, not religion. That's I mean, trying to figure out how to respond to this. I'm not even really sure that's true. I mean, there were are you trying to say that science disproves God or something? Because there are a lot of people who will tell you that they know things not because of, their scientific inquiries, but because God revealed it to them. So you have to take that into consideration. I mean, you could dismiss it as, anecdotal evidence, but at the same time, for those people, and assuming, obviously some people are going to be lying, probably even a vast majority of people who claim to be, have revelations from God are probably lying or just mentally ill, but there are some people who are probably being honest when they say that they've had some sort of experience with a transcendental force. So when you say this, Robin Hood, what do you? Every answer that we have found was found through science, not religion. Are you trying to say that that proves that no God exists? And if so, how? Like, and again, this is an open discussion. So if you want to join the chat, you're allowed to. Science in itself means Gnostic and language and knowledge. To know is to have God. God is knowledge and encompasses everything entirely. So actually, let me pin the link for anyone who wants to join. We can, again, we can, originally I was talking about Christianity and Christian doctrine, but I did get into a message about kind of the problems I see with atheism, and how it really, or I guess not atheism generally, but certainly naturalism, and people who think that naturalism can provide a basis for answering all of our questions about reality. I'm at work, or I joined. Yeah, that's fine. I'm glad you're interacting in the chat, though. I'm appreciating your engagement for sure. Good to see you again, this one guy. Yeah, so Robinhood, every answer we have was found through science, not religion. Like, I'm just not sure. Like, are you talking about like science, like copyright with a trademark? Like, because there are a lot of things that, yes, everything we've observed, we've observed. Like, what does this comment mean? I'm just trying to figure out your epistemology here. Like, because people will tell you, like, if Moses really did receive a revelation from God on Mount Sinai, like that wasn't, was that science? I mean, no, but should it be dismissed because it's not like a guy in a lab coat, like, studying rocks and coming up with, the Ten Commandments? Like, I'm just not sure this comment is really logically sound. You know what I'm saying? It sounds like some like Reddit level atheism that just isn't even really true and is kind of incomprehensible. God is a natural substance, not supernatural. Otherwise, God is dependent on other means than himself. Look at a mousetrap and tell yourself it didn't have a designer and see how ridiculous. Yeah, if when people look at the complexity of life and they want to say that there was no designer, and I really do think that they're involved in a very deep level of the self-deception at that point. I mean, you can say you think that things evolved over a long period of time to be that complex, but again, there's a lot of miracles that have to happen along the way that are very improbable. And I'm sorry, natural selection is an extremely poor explanation. Oh, I'm sorry, mutations and natural selection over a long. You realize how improbable. I don't think a lot of people realize how basically mathematically impossible evolution is. I mean, technically there is a very small chance, but it's like one in one followed by a trillion zero, like a trillion zeros possible. Like it's unlikely. Actually, Robin Hood, I have a number of videos on my channel demonstrating the really incredible unlikelihood of evolution being true. Evolution is a topic I've discussed a number of times on my channel. I've had hosted discussions on evolution. I brought people on who believe in evolution and explain it, and I've showed how, in my opinion, I've shown how they were, didn't establish their position. So you have no idea what I mean, clearly you just have no clue what you're talking about. All right, what's the evidence? Let's hear it. What's the evidence? You don't seem to understand how much evidence exists. What is it? What's your best line of evidence? Let's go. Join and by the way, you're free to join. I've posted the link, so if you want to get on and show me the evidence, you're free to do so. I don't know if you're typing, but I'm going to give you a chance to lay out a line of evidence. However you feel free to, however you want to do that in the chat or in the, if you're free to join as well. But I'm really curious to see the evidence. So whenever you get around to doing that, I do have some articles, by the way, about evolution. I was going to review those as well. You want me to read the articles about evolution that I was going to review, Robin Hood, that show how really kind of bad the evidence is for you guys? You can learn evolution. Oh shit! Educate me. Give me a line of evidence. You say there's so much evidence. Where is it? What is it? All right. Like I said, I've talked about evolution a number of times on this channel. I know you haven't seen every video I've ever made, but I've actually done a lot of deep dives in evolution. I have videos that, in my opinion, totally disprove evolution. Not that I have videos, discussions on my channel where I review information that's out there from the scientific literature showing that evolution is impossible. You can go back and watch them, especially a while back I was doing ID updates, intelligent design updates, and there's a couple of them in there that are just like, I think anyone who's open minded. So what is it? What do you think is the best evidence for evolution, Robin Hood? Because I'm here for you. So tell me what you think is the best evidence for evolution. Because there's so much of it. You don't seem to understand how much evidence exists. Okay. What is it? What do you think is the best evidence for evolution? Um, I don't know. Evolution without a creator is supernatural. Creation is more natural than coming from no being or no thing. Yeah, I agree. Of course, they used to say that the Big Bang came from nothing. Then they realized that that's logically impossible. Now they're saying that, well, the singularity was always there. It was just in an incomprehensible form that it started expanding at a random point in history. And before that point, the laws of physics break down and we can't understand it. And there's no way to, investigate it. Oh, kind of like, God without God, some incomprehensible thing that existed for all time, but in a way that we can't understand, but just doesn't have a mind and doesn't care about us. Okay. We don't know how the universe started, but we know it wasn't God. All right, that makes sense. All right, Robin Hood, you're taking your sweet time. I guess what did you Here he is again, Robin Hood. You don't know how much understand how much evidence exists. All right, I'm waiting for you to put out a line of evidence that we can investigate. Just one. The one that you think is the best. Or are you going to do another hit and run? You're going to be another one of those guys. A lot of them pop in and out of my chat. And then they run away forever. Yeah, is God without salvation? Non-intervention is God. Death is that power. All right, Robin Hood has gone silent, so I'm going to have to move on without him. He said, he posted a comment in the chat. You don't seem to understand how much evidence exists. I challenge him to, put forward the things that he think are most significant, and all of a sudden he's completely silent. I'm not sure what's going on. Maybe he's, typing it. Maybe he's getting things together and his evidence together, and he's going to put. But so far, I haven't seen anything. So I'm just going to move on. If you want to put anything in there, Robin Hood, feel free. I'm waiting for you. In the meantime, let's actually look at some of the evidence for evolution, just to show you how, in my opinion, it's so bad. It's so bad for evolution. None of the evidence actually makes sense for evolution. So this is a video. This is an article that was written in October on scienceandculture.com. Ancient Eyes, Modern Design: The Remarkable Vision of Trilobites. Now, trilobites are some of the first animals that ever. If you listen to the secular scientists, they're pretty much like in the fossil layer where the first animals appeared, and it's called the Cambrian layer. So, well, I guess I shouldn't say that. The first like complex organisms, because before that there was this layer of life called the Ediacaran. But the life forms in the Ediacaran are basically very difficult to classify because they don't appear to be animals, but they also appear to be more complex than. Oh, we got Brenda Debates. Okay. I don't think you've ever been on my channel. Are you the same person as Robin Hood, or are you a different person?
Test.
Yeah,
test. Just testing my mic.
Yep, I hear you.
No, I am not Robin Hood. I do not know who that is.
Okay, that was somebody who was in my chat purporting to present evidence for evolution, but it seems like he disappeared. So we'll kind of wait on that. But how are you doing, Brenda?
It's 6:45 p.m. here in Minnesota,
Okay.
and it's not too bad.
Is it still really cold in Minnesota right now, or are things warmed up a little bit? Because I heard it was cold there recently.
Well, the temperature to my liking is just fine. It was cold a few days ago.
Okay. So I don't know, like what you have seen of my stream. Did you just see the stream and pop on, or did
I
you hear something
don't
and you wanted to?
I don't think I'm subbed. I might be subbed. Um, Live streams typically pop up in my feed because I have an interest in these kinds of debates. So
Okay.
the algorithm fed me to you or you to me or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So I think that I have seen you around. Are you on someone who
I get around
Yeah, I think I've seen you on the Raging Tomato channel. Have you ever been on that channel?
with Sarah.
Yeah, with Sarah.
Yeah,
Okay. That might be why the algorithm sent you to me, is because sometimes I go to that channel as well and appear on there. Uh,
I don't show up there very often because their topics don't interest me a great deal.
okay, I feel like
I get around a lot,
yeah,
so
okay. Anyways, did you have something in mind that you wanted to discuss, or did you just want to kind of, pop
well,
on and comment
uh,
as you felt
I'm
necessary?
not even 100% sure what your position is. It sounds like you disagree with evolution.
Yes, yeah, that is one of the positions that I hold, is that
Mhm.
evolution is false.
And how
Uh,
did you falsify evolution?
Well, I just don't think that the mechanisms of evolution are sufficient to generate the
Right.
complexity that we see in life. So
So
when
you
you
haven't falsified. So you haven't falsified it. You just go on nah, right?
well, if the scientists have put forth certain mechanisms that are supposed to be able to generate life, and you show that those mechanisms aren't sufficient, then that would falsify the system, right?
Yeah, but that's not the proposition of evolution. Evolution doesn't say something generates life. That's not evolution, right?
What is
You know,
evolution? So give me a definition of evolution.
right? That the origin of species is by
Okay.
descent with modification.
Okay, so there are mechanisms that create diversity within life, right?
No, you got it wrong again,
Okay, so
right?
how am I wrong?
So species originate by means of natural selection.
Okay.
That's the old formulation. The newer one is evolution is just changing in allele frequency in a population over time. That's
Okay.
the newest. That's the newer definition. It's a little bit more abstract, but the older one is simply descent with modification is what explains the origin of new species, right? So it's
Mhm.
either natural selection or random genetic variation or mutations are what accounts for new species. It has
Right.
nothing to do with the origin of life, with biogenesis. That is a separate um, academic question. Or evolution is simply how do new species come about?
Right. So when I say generates life, what I was trying to say, maybe not very precisely, is how life diversified over time. So there are mechanisms by which, once life arises,
Yeah,
there has to
that obviously be by mutations, right?
yeah. Right. So the mechanism would be mutation and selection. So in my opinion, as I reviewed the mechanism of mutation, natural selection, and what it's capable of doing within certain timeframes, it doesn't appear to be anywhere close to sufficient to generate new life
Great.
forms over time.
How did you decide that?
So, well, when we look at life, we can look into the genetic code and see, basically we can calculate how many mutations would have been necessary to generate life within the time frames given by scientists. So, like, the Earth has been in existence for about They say about 4
Yeah.
billion years, right?
It
So
sounds like you're talking about abiogenesis again.
no, I'm not actually. So
Well, it
once life,
sounds like it.
well, let me explain why I'm not. Because every creature has a genetic code, right?
Yeah.
Has a genome. So that genome wasn't present at the first life form, right? It had to basically evolve that way over time, right?
Well, they hypothesized that there was something called RNA world at one point, where you just
Hmm.
had strands of RNA replicating.
Okay.
Yeah.
There's
So
absolutely no evidence of RNA world, but again, that's not
there,
the question.
there there's good reasons to believe it was something that could have happened.
Well, there's the reason that's a problem is because there's literally no organism on Earth that operates just by self-replicating RNA. So, I mean, some viruses only have RNA, but they can't self-replicate. They have to infect their host organisms and use that genetic machinery. So, there are literally zero self-replicating RNA organisms on the planet. So,
Yeah,
if you
yeah. Scientists are aware of that, and they theorize that DNA came after RNA.
so what happened to all the RNA? They just kind of died off and never came back,
Well, you
even though
have
they
your cells operate by RNA right now.
yeah, but they need DNA. They need the DNA as well. If they didn't have
Yeah,
DNA, they couldn't operate.
yeah. I don't see how that's a problem.
Because there's literally zero organisms on Earth. You said that life arose by these organisms that first just use RNA, right?
Yeah, they believe that there was like maybe it was either an ocean or it could have been just like a small pool, right? A tidal pool in
Hmm.
which the constituents for RNA and DNA simply aligned
Yeah,
along a clay substrate, right?
right.
And then they combine and recombine.
Well, they can tell stories all they want. There's no evidence of that. Again, there's no evidence that there was this RNA world of just self-replicating RNA floating around in the sea. Zero, zero, zero evidence of that. RNA doesn't even form naturally.
Yeah.
Neither does DNA. They have to
Well,
synthesize it in a lab. They
that
don't
isn't the
find
kind that isn't the kind of thing that would leave any evidence, is it? Right. So what they do is they say this is a plausible pathway that could have been
right.
taken for
It's a
abiogenesis, which seems to be your focus and not evolution.
okay. Well, I just want to put it out there. They can talk about RNA world. There's no evidence
Yeah,
observed.
yeah,
They
but
can
it's
tell.
it's a
Okay.
it's
So
possible.
there's no observed evidence that RNA world actually existed at any point in history. So you're willing to acknowledge
Yeah,
that, right? Okay.
right.
Thank you.
So it's possible. It's possible though.
It's possible, but there's no evidence of it, and it's
Yeah,
actually not possible because for RNA world to exist, you have to have RNA, right?
yeah, and RNA self-assembles.
No, it doesn't. Actually, it
It
doesn't.
literally does. It literally does. They've shown
Okay. So
experiments where
there's
it aligns along a clay substrate, and so it just literally does that. It's
actually
a self-assembling. It's a self-assembling molecule.
you realize that there isn't any RNA just floating around there that's just self-assembling. There's zero. There's zero, right?
Well, back then there would have been.
So there would have been back then, but there aren't now.
Right.
Why? So why the laws of physics change where
No, no, it
back
didn't.
then
The laws didn't change. There was nothing to eat the RNA back then.
nothing to eat the RNA. So all the RNA got eaten. It's totally gone. There's no
Right.
evidence of it, and you're just willing to believe that.
Yeah, these are basically
Okay.
proteins. Any free proteins today is going to be gobbled up by microbes right
No,
away.
RNA, no, you don't even understand the basic term. RNA is not a protein. DNA is
Well,
not a
no,
protein.
no,
Uh,
but it would be consumed.
okay, so there were no proteins, no RNA, no
That's
evidence that
right.
these things. Okay, so but you're just willing to believe that the scientists
Right.
telling the story is plausible. All
Because
right,
it's
so
because it's pos because it's a possible pathway, right?
but it's not. Let me tell you why. You're
You
not
haven't
listening.
shown that it's not.
How? Okay, so RNA does not form naturally.
It
How do you
literally
have?
does. It literally does.
All right,
You put it in a solution and it literally self-assembles
where did the RNA come from in that assembly? Like, how did it get there?
through some chemical process.
There's no. This is what I'm trying to show you. The chemical process doesn't exist to create RNA.
Yeah, it
RNA.
does. It literally does. They've literally done experiments. The
All right,
urea
can you
there's
here? I'm gonna give you a chance to look up any article that says that RNA basically self produces itself and then self assembles into strands of RNA.
nobody thinks it self-produces itself. The
Well, where does
precursors
it
for
come from
RNA,
then? Where does it come from?
the precursors are just produced chemically
No, they
in a
aren't.
reducing environment. Yes, they are.
Where can you give me any evidence
It,
of this fantastical story that you're telling? Because
there have been
you're
plenty of
doing you
experiments that
show
show
it,
that
give,
show
post
there
it,
have been
post it.
plenty.
I
Yeah,
have researched this. I have researched this, and you're wrong. You're just making
right.
things up that aren't true.
No, no, that's not true
Okay, well, all
because
right. Let's show me the evidence. Show me the evidence. I want to
well,
see
I
it because
thought
I
this was going
really
to be about evolution and
no.
not
But you're
about
making okay. Well,
abiogenesis.
you made all right. You're the one who brought up RNA world. I'm trying to explain to you how it's literally impossible, and you still want to believe it's possible. So I'm
You
trying to
haven't
help you
shown it's impossible.
because I'm trying to explain to you a very. All right. Let me reset here. There's a very basic concept for RNA world. You brought up RNA world as a potential pathway. There's a really big problem with RNA world, and that's that RNA world doesn't basically there's no natural pathway to create RNA as far as we know in the wild. Now they can synthesize it in a lab, but RNA it doesn't exist in the nature to assemble into anything. Okay, it's not there's not like there's free floating RNA just floating around out there. Scientists these days have to create it in a lab and then they mix it around and then it assembles into various things. But as far as we know, nature cannot itself create the RNA blocks that can then assemble into something meaningful. Okay. So it's a very
Yeah, you're
huge
just
problem.
wrong. Yeah, you're just
Okay.
wrong.
All right. Well, let's show me
Experiments
why.
have shown that the nucleotides that make up RNA, right? They
Uh huh.
form they form in the early Earth environment just naturally.
Where? Show me the evidence. What's your evidence? What's your source? All right. I'm just gonna type in does RNA form naturally? Let's see what happens. All right, so I'm just going to share my screen and we can read along. Like, no, you're definitely wrong. Like, RNA doesn't just exist naturally. There are now, yes, there are people who have theories that these things may have existed on the early Earth. But
Yeah, yeah.
all right, so this is where did RNA come from? This is from July. This is earlier this year, July 22nd, 2025. Oh, I guess I can't zoom in that far. Origin Life scientists help to answer the question. So as recently as this year, they're still trying to figure this out.
What do you mean trying to figure it out?
They're trying to figure out, asking this question: where did RNA come from?
What does the article say that it came from?
All right, let's find out. So in living organisms today, unfortunately, why does it have to? I'm going to zoom out a little bit. Complex molecules like RNA and DNA are constructed with the help of enzymes. So enzymes are very complex proteins that exist in living organisms. There would not have been any enzymes around in the early Earth. So how did these molecules form before life and enzymes existed? So there's a classic origin life chicken and egg question. You don't have RNA, you don't have DNA, you don't have the enzymes, and they all need each other.
Yeah, so
Why did some molecules?
The next paragraph literally says that how ribose may have become the sugar of choice for RNA development.
May have. So
yeah,
they didn't,
of course.
Okay,
of course.
Again.
So you agree it could have. So you agree it could have.
No, I don't, because
it says may. It says may. Are you disagreeing with the study?
Yeah, I am. But it's not saying that this is how it happened. It's proposing.
Well, no, of course not. We can't say this is how it happened. What we can do is just give plausible reasons for why it might have happened a certain way. And we can't possibly know that because there's not going to be any fossilized RNA, right?
Right. So let's just read this. This gives credence to the idea that this type of prebiotic chemistry could have produced.
Yeah. There you go. That's all I need. All I need is the possibility. All I need is the possibility.
Okay, so there's a possibility, but no actual evidence.
No, but of course you wouldn't expect evidence.
Okay,
right?
So you're just
because it's not going to fossilize.
That's not how science works. So science is.
It's literally how science works. It works by hypotheses and probabilities, and
It
not
actually is
absolutes.
no,
Science cannot prove things. It simply demonstrates that this is more likely than that.
can science prove that the sun exists?
What are you talking about?
You just said science can't prove anything. Can science prove that the sun exists?
No, it can't.
So we don't know if the sun exists, is what you're trying to say.
You can't prove it.
I can't prove so. So if I can't prove the sun exists, then I can't. Yeah, you're right. I can't.
That
I
would be a
can't prove.
philosophical question. That would be
Okay, so you're going
a
into
mind.
solipsism.
How do you know you're not a brain in a vat?
Okay, so
The
basically,
sun that you see could simply be a stimulation from the computer that's
okay,
hooked up to you in the vat.
and this is
So
where we
no,
are.
you can't.
So science can't. So basically, what you're trying to say is science can't prove anything because we can't know anything with absolute certainty. All right, that's you're going into hard solipsism here.
Yeah.
This is what you're
No,
doing.
this
Okay,
is not solipsism. That's not. I'm not being solipsist. I'm saying that science can't prove things with absolute certainty. Math can. Science cannot, because science is based on inductive reasoning and not deductive reasoning.
wait. What if I am looking at a computer screen right now?
Are you?
Is it inductive reasoning for me to say that I'm looking at a computer screen right now? Is that
Yeah,
inductive reasoning?
that would be a reasonable inductive inference, but you can't deductively prove that you're looking at a computer screen.
So our observations are useless to prove anything, is what you're saying.
No, that doesn't follow. That doesn't follow that observations are useless.
So can I prove anything by simply observing it?
No.
So what can be proven in your opinion?
Analytic statements can be proven, like every unmarried man is a bachelor. Bachelors are unmarried men. I can prove that. I can't prove that you are looking at a computer screen because that is an inductive inference based on your sensory perception, and you could be wrong. You could be hallucinating.
Okay, so once we've assumed that we are actually able to observe a universe around us, which is the basis of science, is based on observing things.
Well, we assume that, yeah, we assume that we're
Okay,
observing the universe
let's assume that there's a universe around us and that we can observe it. And of course, there are people with mental illnesses and psychiatric problems who that's distorted, but we have irrational faculties. Okay, can we use our sense perceptions to observe the universe?
Yes, that's what science
Okay.
does, but you
Okay.
can't give absolute certainty, right? Because
Okay,
you
so
can't
based
prove that
on
because B always follows A, you can't know with deductive certainty that A caused B.
I'm not trying to demonstrate that. What I'm trying to show is
That's
that
literally what you're trying to do. That's literally what you've been claiming.
all right, right. So all I'm trying to show you is that science actually can demonstrate, as far as we're able to do so, that certain things are true. Like science can demonstrate that the Earth is a globe and not a flat, object. Science can
What do you
demonstrate
mean by
that
demonstrate? Demonstrate isn't a word that you said prove or what?
we
We
can,
can
we
give you
there are
evidence. We
yeah
can give you evidence for the globe,
right,
but the Earth isn't actually a globe. It's actually an oblate spheroid.
right, exactly. Whatever it is what
Right.
it
So
is.
it's not a sphere. It's not a sphere. If you said the Earth was a sphere, you'd be wrong.
I said it's a globe. Okay, and that's
Yeah.
correct.
Well, that's just a vague term. The precise
Basically,
term is WGS 84, which is a survey it shows, and it's actually fairly lumpy in parts.
all right,
It's not a
okay.
perfect. It's not a perfect sphere. It's
I
not
never
a
said it
perfect.
was.
It's not even a perfect oblate spheroid. That's oblate spheroid is simply close to what it
Brenda,
is.
hold on. I never said any of that. I said it's a globe, and I said it's
Yeah.
not flat. Okay. So what I'm trying to show is that we can observe things, and based on our empirical observations, basically establish that they are true aspects of reality. Okay.
No, you
So
can't. That's this long-term philosophy of science that empiricism cannot prove things are true.
I said we can demonstrate that it's as far as we can observe, we can demonstrate that these things are true and correspond to
No,
reality. Okay.
I don't know what you mean by demonstrate as true. It doesn't seem to add anything. Science works by experiments, not demonstrations. It's not a parlor trick.
Well,
Right?
did the experiments demonstrate anything?
The experiments will determine either the plausibility of the hypothesis or falsify the hypothesis.
So we observed that, right? We observed
Science
that,
works.
right?
Science works by falsification.
but we had to observe with our senses
Yeah,
the
yeah. We
results.
assume
Okay,
we
so
assume that
science.
we're not a brain in a, we assume we're not a brain in a
Okay,
vat. Yeah.
you're the one who went there. Okay, what I'm trying to show you is that all aspects of science rely on us observing things, and when we observe things, we can basically say one thing is more likely to be true than another, right?
Right. It's more likely that the Earth is an oblate sphere than it is that it's flat.
Okay, thank you. So we're
But it's
finally
not a
getting some.
demonstrate. It's not a demonstration. And it's not an absolute certainty.
Okay, I never said it's an absolute certainty. What I'm trying to show you is that when we observe these things, okay, we're going back to RNA now.
Right.
Scientists, uh, when science is looking at things, observing them, and trying to determine whether they are real or not, there is no evidence that RNA just self exists in nature without some sort
Well,
of.
this is evidence. This is evidence. They talk
No,
about
it
it here.
isn't.
They say that the precursors to RNA could have existed naturally.
Okay, they can say that, but again, that's a claim. That's not an observation. You realize that, right? There's no
Right.
observation
And the
of
claim, no, there is observation. It's based on experimental evidence.
right, but it's not like they went out in nature and found RNA floating around in ponds and streams and stuff. They're just
No,
basically saying
you don't
they're
have to do
basically
that in science. You don't have to do that in science. You just do it in the lab. You set
okay.
up the
So right,
conditions.
so
You
in
set up the
a
conditions that meet your hypothesis for what the early conditions on Earth would have been, and you say under these conditions, then this would have
in,
happened because we do it in the lab and we get these results. Therefore, we're justified. We have warrant for asserting that this is a possible pathway that life took.
all right. So, but again, I want to highlight that as far as actually going into nature and seeing these things, there's no one has done that has not
The
happened. So
laboratory is in nature. The laboratory is nature.
no, actually, it isn't because like
Yes,
it's
it
like saying,
is.
well, it's like saying, well, I saw them construct a space shuttle, so that means hypothetically the laws of
Uh,
nature could have, in the early Earth and the wind and the rain, could have put together a
If
space
I have
shuttle
a
that flies to the moon. No, no, it's not how it works.
if
That's
I have
not
a
the same.
test tube, if I have a test tube and I combine chemicals in the test tube, that's nature.
Yeah, but they're actually,
That's
first of all,
that's
they
what they
never.
do. That's what they
First of all,
do. They combine chemicals in a test tube. That's nature.
okay, but you have to realize that when you're talking about if it happens in a test tube in a controlled, first of all, they didn't actually see any RNA in any experiment either, as I'm reading. I think they were just talking about there were some like chemical precursors to RNA that they saw
Yeah, yeah, and we
forming.
know that RNA is a self-assembling molecule. You just put the precursors together in a test tube, and they self-assemble. We know that because we can do it. We
All
don't
right, hold
have to
on.
go, you don't have to go out in the world. You reproduce the conditions in the world and study them in a laboratory. It's just like dropping, you drop a weight in the laboratory and you know that that's the same as dropping a weight outside in the world. But under a laboratory, you can measure precisely how much it accelerates and know that, there's a thing called gravity. Do you deny gravity?
No, I don't.
Right. So we can measure gravity in the natural world. And I mean, in the laboratory, we can measure the acceleration due to gravity. And then we can know, right, that that's how gravity works outside of the laboratory. What's wrong with you?
All right, so where can you see my screen here? I'm trying
Where
to
did
educate.
RNA come from? The RNA world and the origin of life.
Right. So this is again from this year. So they're still asking this question. So again,
Of course.
I'm just trying to show you that this isn't something that they've established as fact. It's a theory that they're putting out there
Of course. You know
that
what a theory is in science? Do you think that a theory is higher than a fact? Theories are made out of facts.
ribonucleic acid or RNA is a prime candidate for life's earliest forms due to its, again, this is this year,
Yeah.
August of 2025. It's a
Yeah.
candidate. So
Yeah.
they're
What's
not,
wrong with
again,
that?
I just want you to be aware that this isn't something that
Well,
they've established as how life arose. It's just a possible story that science is
didn't
telling
I
for
say
people.
that I said that from the
Okay,
beginning.
I just want you to be, I want to be very clear with the audience as well, for whoever watches this, that there is
I don't know
zero
why we're
evidence
talking
that,
about. Yeah, why would there
because
be evidence? This is evidence. The
So
studies that
I
are
just,
done in laboratories
I
are
just,
evidence. They're
I'm doing this.
evidence.
I'm doing this for the audience to show how people like you actually don't care about observations and evidence. It's just you tell your
This
own
is an
stories.
observation.
No,
This
it's
is
not.
an
It's
observation.
not.
Yes, it is. It's an
It's you.
experiment. It's
It's
an
you believing it's
experiment conducted in
right.
a laboratory. Are you
It's
saying that if I drop a rock inside a laboratory, it's not evidence for how rocks drop outside of the
it,
laboratory?
again. I'm trying to help you see that you all make fun of religious people for telling stories, but you will believe your own stories with no evidence, and this is exactly what you're doing.
That's because it's
And
not a narrative. It's not a
this is
story. It's
this is a
science.
story. It's a story being told by atheist scientists for people like you to think that there's some way life could have arisen when all the evidence points
Yeah.
in the opposite direction. Okay,
The
so
previous sections that you highlighted said it could.
no,
They said
it
it was
really did.
possible. They said it was possible, a possible pathway. That literally said that.
Look at this. The theoretical possibility of RNA molecules
Yes.
self-replicating. It's not even an established fact that they can self-replicate. It's a theoretical possibility. It's not something that they've observed. This is what you have to understand. I'm
We
trying to
literally
help.
observe RNA self-replicating, but they're talking about it as it forming the basis for the foundation of life.
Look at all this language. The RNA world hypothesis proposes that RNA molecules were central
Yeah,
to
that's
the.
how science works. That's how science works. Why science doesn't work from certainty. It doesn't give you certainty. It gives you
Look,
hypotheses that are it gives you hypotheses that are probably or likely or more than likely or less likely than true.
all right, going
Right? That's
forward,
how science works.
this framework envisions a primordial. Oh, they're envisioning things. They're making
Yeah, that's
things
a
up.
hypothesis. It's a hypothesis.
The RNA world posits a simpler biological system than
Yes,
what exists. There's
a
what there.
hypothesis. A
Okay, so
hypothesis.
let's just calm down for a second. Let's just read this. The RNA world posits a simpler biological system than what exists today, where the complex division of labor between DNA, RNA, and proteins had not yet evolved. Do you realize? All right, so let's read this right here. Do you realize that every single organism on Earth that exists today uses DNA, RNA, and proteins? There is not a single one that only uses RNA.
That's literally what that sentence says. What's wrong
Right,
with you? What's wrong
right,
with you?
exactly. So there is zero evidence of any organism self-replicating that only uses RNA.
Right. They
Zero.
hypothesized that in the past it was
Okay.
simpler.
Okay.
Right? They a
They told
posit
us
a
they told a
posit is a
story.
hypothesis, and they're hypothesizing a simpler biological system than what exists today.
Okay.
How
So
is that hard to understand?
they told a story and you like it, so you're gonna believe it's possible. All right. So again,
Yeah,
um
you agreed that it's possible. You even
no, I
agreed
know
when I said it was possible.
because
You agreed it's possible.
no, it's not. It's actually not possible
Well, you have
because
to show that it's not possible because
the
they say
well
it is. They did experiments showing
they
that it's possible.
again, these are people who are emotionally committed to an atheistic worldview, and they're
All right, so
throwing
it's
these.
an ad hom. It's an ad hom. They're
No, it's
atheists,
not.
therefore the study is
I'm,
wrong.
I'm trying to
That's an
explain the
ad hom.
psychology.
That's an ad hom. An ad hom is your argument is wrong because of some personal characteristic. That just because you don't know that they're atheists. There's plenty of theists and Christians and Muslims and other people and Jews and everybody in science. You're just assuming they're atheists because you don't like the result.
Brenda, you are the one who suggested RNA world.
No, I wanted to
But
talk about evolution, not
right.
abiogenesis. You're the one
Well,
doing this.
I get, but here's the problem. Without
Can we
life,
talk about evolution
yes,
sometime?
we can. I just want. All right. The last thing I'll say is this: if life has not started, it cannot evolve. So it has to start at some point, and there's no at this point model that shows how that could have happened.
You've literally been
Especially,
reading papers that show a possible pathway for life to
all
have
right,
taken.
if you want to believe that, the stories
That's
without
literally what they
any
said. You read
right
it. You read it. You
there
highlighted it.
there
You
are very
highlighted it with your
right
highlighter. It
there are
literally said
people
that.
there are people making suggestions, but as far as going out and observing actual things in the
We
real
don't
world,
expect to be able to see
okay,
that,
yeah, we don't expect
right?
to be able to see
Because
anything. So
any kind of
you'll right.
evidence would be immediately destroyed in this world. It would be
It's like,
consumed by
oh,
bacteria.
we would. Well, I could say, well, I could. We wouldn't expect to see Jesus just flying around in the clouds, but we still have to have faith that he's up there taking care of us. We don't expect to see God, the man
You
up in
think
the clouds.
Jesus?
I
You
would,
think
I would say,
Where's
no.
God's? You think God's throne is in the clouds?
No, yeah, there's a man up there throwing lightning bolts down,
Is that what
and
you no, honestly,
no,
is that what you think? You don't think that.
well, it's
You don't.
just there's no evidence of it, but
You
we
don't.
have to have faith.
You
We have
think
to have
that
faith.
God. You think that God's throne is in the clouds. Unironically, I'm not. I'm not joking around. Unironically,
Why shouldn't I? Why shouldn't I?
because it's ridiculous,
What? Why is it ridiculous?
right?
Why is it
Because we know
ridiculous?
that we live. Because we know that we live on a planet, right? And that up there, there's no air, no oxygen, and things can't
We
just fly
know.
around. Yes, yes, we
How do we
do.
know that? How do we know that?
We know, by science. By science, we have
Oh, we now
very
science
strong evidence.
we know things now. Now we can know things.
Yes, yes.
We know.
Knowledge isn't certainty. You're confusing certainty with knowledge. Knowledge isn't absolute certainty.
Okay,
You
so
know
we
that,
can.
right?
So I'm not okay, but if
Knowledge
we can't
knowledge
know
is
indefinitely.
warranted. Knowledge is warranted belief.
Okay, okay, gotcha. Well, I have a warranted belief that God is up in the clouds throwing lightning bolts down, and
Oh,
just
okay.
because.
What's your evidence? What's your evidence?
So now I need to actually have evidence for what I believe.
Well, the studies you've cited are evidence for abiogenesis.
You see the lightning bolts, don't you?
Yeah.
Okay, so there's a man up there throwing them down. He's invisible
Uh,
though.
How did you come to that conclusion?
No, you missed something. We don't need evidence. We just need to have
Yeah,
we
that's
just need
right,
to have
because you're
faith.
not doing science. Science requires evidence,
There you go. We've come full
right?
circle. You're not
No,
doing science either.
yes, I am, because the studies that you cited are based in evidence.
I have my evidence. I have lightning bolts coming out of the skies. What else do you want?
Evidence.
What is that? Wait, but you don't have to have evidence for your RNA world theory. You don't have to
I
observe
do.
anything.
I do. We've given you experiments that show that this is a
I have
possible
experiments,
pathway. What
and I have
experiment have you
experiments.
done to show that there's a man in the clouds throwing lightning bolts?
The lightning bolts themselves prove that there's a guy up there throwing them down. What
No,
else do
they
you want?
don't. Lightning bolts are based on
Yeah, I said,
charge. They're
well,
based on charge, on friction, on the friction in the air between the cloud and the ground.
I read in
That's
a book. I read in an ancient book that Thor is up in the clouds throwing down lightning bolts. So that's a
uh-huh.
plausible hypothesis.
You could make that a hypothesis, but it would fail trying to do any experiments to validate it.
Oh, so I wouldn't observe what the piece of paper says, right? I
Well,
wouldn't.
you would go investigate the nature of
Ah,
lightning bolts and find out that they're simply a discharge of electrical
okay.
potential,
So,
right?
what you're saying is I would go up into the clouds and look there, and if there's no man
That would
there,
be a
then
good start. Yeah.
okay. So
Yeah,
if I
yeah,
go
that
look
would
in
be a
the
good
water,
start.
wait. So if somebody writes down on a piece of paper that there's RNA out there, and I go look around, there's nothing. Wouldn't that kind of be a similar problem for you?
They didn't write down on a piece of paper. They did a fucking study.
They did a study and the study did
Yes, it's
not
based in
correspond.
experiments. But they
But
did experiments.
they did experiments, but they didn't actually go out there and see any RNA in the water,
You
did
don't
they?
have to. You don't have to go
Aha.
outside to figure out that gravity works the same in your laboratory as it does outside. The
I
same
got
with the
you.
chemical reactions that give rise to
Of course.
nucleotides.
All right, I think I've
Of
made my
course.
point.
Do you think? No, you haven't. You've just humiliated yourself. You're concussed.
Chris Lucas sees the problem. Thank you, Chris. All
What's the
right.
contradiction? What's the contradiction?
We got Von Erich in the chat. Good to see you, Von
What's the
Erich. All right,
contradiction?
let's move on to evolution. I think even you are seeing the problem with what you're saying at this point. You just want to admit it. All right, so evolution. So let's get back to the mechanisms of evolution. You asked me how I falsified evolution, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So again, when we talk about the first living organism, let's say it was some sort of amoeba. As far as we know,
No, that's not it. Anarchaea was not as complex as an amoeba.
it was some sort of simple self-replicating single-celled organism,
Sure,
right?
sure,
Okay.
yeah. You know that lipids just naturally form into little modules, right? Little
One second,
cells.
Brenda. I have Drex. I watched your
I don't
debate
know
with
who
William.
Drex.
It was good to hear. I just want to. He's someone in the comment section. I just want to give a shout out to Drex. I appreciate you being here, Drex, and I appreciate you watching the debate that I had with Charles of Layman Seminary. And I hope you learned something, even if you don't agree with everything I believe. I hope it was informative for you. So thank you for being here. Appreciate it. Where was I? Okay, so there was some first original universal common ancestor, right?
Luca.
Right. So this creature would have had to have had some, as far as we know, it would have had to have had the basic, cellular machinery of a single cell organism to self-replicate DNA.
Would it necessarily
RNA.
have to resemble? Would it necessarily have to resemble the mechanisms used today?
Well, there's no evidence, as far as we've observed, of organisms.
Yeah.
Oh, we got. Thank you.
So,
Thank you.
so it wouldn't. So it wouldn't have to have the same mechanisms of today. It simply has to get from. It simply has to be able to replicate, right? That's all it has to do. You just have to get from. You just have to get from one generation to the next generation.
Yeah, and
that's all you have to do.
Right. As far as we know, based on everything we know about life at this time and how it operates, it would need to have basically a genetic code that codes for its basically entire existence, right? You can't have an organism that doesn't have a genetic code, as far as we understand, right?
I don't know. I think there's some viruses that don't have a code. I'm not really sure though.
What viruses do, they are not self-replicating. So every single virus that exists on Earth, if it cannot exist on its own.
Yeah, they're parasitic.
They're not even really parasitic. They are not self-existent organisms because they cannot self-reproduce. They cannot what viruses do is they have to hijack the cellular machinery of other organisms to reproduce themselves.
I don't know about you, but if I get you to do my reproduction for me, I think I've succeeded.
Right. So what I'm trying to say is the first living organism couldn't have done that because it wouldn't have anything else to hijack the machinery. So it would have had to basically function as
well, we don't think they were viruses, but they would just replicate, right? What's wrong with replication?
So whatever the genome of that organism was, it was not the same as a human genome, right? It was probably much simpler. It probably
nowhere close to even the simplest modern single cell organisms. It wouldn't even be close to that complicated.
Right, exactly. So what we know for a fact is that there would have had to have been a lot of mutations that would have had to have happened between that organism and humans and other similarly complex organisms.
There could be entire populations of the precursors replicating all over the place. Why couldn't that be?
But the problem is none of those organisms led to it. Basically all those lineages died out. So there had to be.
You don't know that. You don't know that. How do you can't justify that claim?
All right, I probably could, but I'm not really interested. What I'm trying to explain to you is that whatever the simplest organism is, the last universal common ancestor, because that is a concept that is within science, they would have had to have been a lot of mutations that accumulated between that point and where we are today in the biosphere. Would you agree with that?
Yeah.
Okay, good. We're getting somewhere. So if you calculate the known mutation rate of organisms and how many it would have taken to basically create a human or get to where that Luca and to where we are today, and basically also incorporate the number of organisms that have ever existed, which are there are estimates for that. Basically, it's basically mathematically impossible that mutations.
Can you show the math? I'd like to see the math.
There actually is a 20-minute video that does the job.
Well, since you saw it and you understand it, could you present the math? It shouldn't be hard. Present the math.
Okay, I'll try and do as best a job as I can. But the point is,
do you have any post high school math at all?
Brenda, I have
I
You don't
don't
really
know
know.
who you are. I don't know who
Yes,
you
yes,
are.
I do. I have extensive post-high school mathematical and scientific education. Very, very, way more than the average
Can I
person.
ask what your degree is? You have a degree?
I don't feel the need to reveal that, but just trust me.
Well, you can reveal it. Just trust me. You can reveal it but you don't have to reveal the
I will
institution.
say, I will
You have
say
a
that
BA in what? You have a BA in what?
I'm not going to reveal that. I will say that my education is in science. I'm just not. I won't say which one, but the science that I did required a great
Computer
deal of.
science. Computer
It's.
science, huh?
I'm not going to
These
reveal what it is,
these
but I
types
will.
are almost always computer science nerds who think that because they learned
Right. So
computers,
I will.
they
I will.
know
I will.
they know everything.
I will say this. When I went to a university for 4 years, and we basically took mathematics. So multiple years of
Yeah,
calculus, multiple years of
yeah,
differential equations and things like that, linear
right,
equations, all of that. So
yeah,
I've studied math way more than the average
right,
person.
right. So
And I'll,
what is the law of large numbers then?
uh, the law
Right?
of large numbers. I mean, I will say I don't remember that
Yeah.
concept.
If I roll the die and I get an
Oh,
outcome,
so
that's
a
it.
prob. Oh, yeah. So I did take probability, by the way. So yes, I'm familiar with like calculating probabilities and things like that.
Yeah.
So yeah, so that is actually the problem is probabilities with
Really?
basically yes, because there's a when you talk about when we talk about you don't seem to have a really I'm not trying to be insulting, but you don't really seem to have a good grasp of the actual the chemistry, all right, of what's necessary for
Why are we talking chemistry now? I thought we were talking math and probability.
because it's all related because basically the proteins that are necessary for life uh they are assembled they would have to have been basically located by a mutation search mechanism, okay,
Why? Why?
because the proteins themselves are encoded by the DNA. That's what the DNA does. It actually it's
Can't they
called
just form randomly?
no they can't. That's
Why
the
not?
problem
Why can't
because
proteins just form randomly?
proteins are specific sequences of amino acids.
Yeah, but why, it doesn't
So
have to be a specific sequence. It could
it
just be
does. It actually does.
it could, no, it
No,
could
it
just
doesn't.
be any sequence, right?
That's not correct. That's not correct.
But
You
they
can't just
can
have,
do that, right? They can do that. Proteins can just form any sequence, right?
well, no. All right.
Right?
First of all, no,
They
they can't.
fold, they combine and they fold on their own due to physical principles, not math, right? Just due to physics, right? The folding is due to the valence on the atoms, right?
That's correct, but the sequence of molecules has to
Right.
be very
So
specific.
that's not math, that's physics. It's physics,
Well,
right?
the physics doesn't get you the sequence that's not because the fold. All right, you do know a little bit, so I'm impressed by that, but you don't realize the problem because first of all, again, you have the problem of do you know what the building blocks of proteins are?
I think I'm not sure, it's amino acids,
It
right?
is amino acids. Very nice.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Amino acids, again, are not something that form just naturally in the Earth's environment. Like there are
I
some
kind of
people
think they
who
do.
no, they don't. They don't.
We found them on a comet.
No, okay. If you want to believe that, go ahead. But
What do you mean if you
um,
want to believe it? That's a
so
scientific study.
okay,
They've done spectroscopy and they've actually brought
no,
back pieces of comet to Earth. We did that. We had some
yeah.
aerogel. We had some aerogel, right? And we embedded pieces of a comet with it and brought the satellite back to Earth,
All right. So again, we're getting into this atheistic
right?
fables here that they want
So
to tell themselves.
there are
All right.
organic molecules like formaldehyde out in space.
So what you want to say is
It
this.
literally it forms spontaneously out in
No,
space.
it doesn't. That's a lie. They
What? Well,
don't
then how
form
did it get
spontaneously.
there? How did the formaldehyde
There's
get
no. All
into
right.
the comet?
All right, here's what the scientists are trying to lie and tell everyone that there are all these comets out there with amino acids on them, and we don't find them on
Oh,
Earth anywhere except for like a couple
right,
of them.
right.
But
Because
they're out there. Brenda,
formaldehyde is an organic compound. As soon as it lands on Earth,
Brenda,
it's going to be
let me,
gobbled up by some bacterium.
Brenda, would you let me talk because a lot of people don't understand. I just want to inform people as to what the scientists are laughably claiming. Yeah,
Are
we
you
go out.
denying? Are you denying the Oort cloud? Is that it?
Hold on, Brenda. Let me just speak for a minute here. So when the scientists go out in nature on Earth, they don't find almost any of life's amino acids forming naturally. In fact, they find zero of them. So what they're claiming is that we've sent satellites up to comets in outer space, where conditions are far worse for the formation of these molecules. And they're
But
all
they,
over the place. Hold on, let me finish.
yeah, they
And they're
find
all
them though.
and
They
they're all
find
and
them.
they're all over all these comets. And what happens
Yeah,
is
they find them. There's
these
water out in space.
but
There's water
Brenda,
out.
Brenda, hold on, give me a second. Let me just finish this. And what they do, and what the comets do, is they come into Earth's atmosphere, they burn up thousands of degrees, and they smash into the Earth and blow up and explode. And somehow the amino acids just survive that
Yeah,
incredible intense
in the
heat.
interior.
And
In
then
the interior. You,
even though much
they,
smaller heat can destroy it on Earth.
not
Yeah. They want to
not
say
all
that
meteors. Not all meteors or meteorites explode. Right. Some of them
right.
just fall to
So
Earth.
yeah, all the
People have found meteors right on the ground in the water. Still, the water still bubbling with the heat of the meteorite. Right.
yeah, no.
They
Brandon, no,
found that.
they haven't.
There,
They haven't. They
they
haven't.
found that. You can find pictures. You can find videos of it.
Oh, I can
They
find videos of
saw.
someone.
Right. Do you think that there's
I
a
can find.
firmament? Are you a
I can.
firmament person? Are you a firmament
Wait.
person?
So you're saying I can find a video of someone walking around finding amino acids in the water?
Not amino acids. I said that the meteorites can survive um, uh,
Mm-hmm.
impact with the Earth, right? And they would have
Right.
an interior. They could have an interior that has amino acids in it. Obviously, the outside, if it burns away, right, that's not going to survive. But the rest of the comet does survive.
Okay.
Sometimes they just fall. There was a woman who was struck by a meteorite on her thigh,
Uh-huh.
right? It didn't punch a hole through her, right? It had already expended all of its kinetic energy, and
Mm-hmm.
it punched through her the house, and it punched through a wall, and then it had no more energy left, and it hit her thigh, caused a bruise, but it didn't punch a hole through her, right? So the
All
fact
right.
is that meteorites that things can survive impact with the Earth, and if they're carrying amino acids, that's one possible way that the early Earth could have been seeded with the necessary constituents for the beginnings of life.
Oh my gosh. I really feel sorry for you people. I do. The level of delusion I'm hearing is I really
Yeah,
it's sad. It's
I hear
sad.
this.
It's
I
sad.
hear the same thing from flat earthers. Flat earthers tell me
Yeah.
the same
So
thing.
you think that all right, so let's just establish a fact. They have not found any of life's amino acids on Earth, right? Forming naturally.
We find them in comets out in space.
I didn't ask that. I said we don't find them on Earth, correct?
I don't know. Maybe somebody has
No, we don't.
tested
All right, thank you.
I don't know that. You
So,
don't know that.
yeah, we do. Unless you can
No,
provide
you
evidence.
don't.
All right, well,
It's
yeah, I do.
plausible. It's plausible in my mind that a meteorite or part of a comet could survive entry into the Earth, and it could still hold the say organic molecules of some kind or amino acids or something because we find them out
If
there.
you, if
They're
you,
out
if
there.
no, no, they are. That's
They're
again,
not
you are.
out there. So we don't find
No, I hate to
these
break this to
organic
you. I
they're
hate to
not
break this
out
to
there.
you.
They're not out
No,
there
they're
in
not. They're not.
comets. They're not.
They're not. They're not. No. I
Right,
know that
right.
there are scientists who are claiming that they found these things, but these are things that they say so that people like you
We found
will have
possibilities of
some.
life on Mars. There's possibility of life on Mars.
Okay, well that's fine.
Yeah.
I don't dispute that, but what I'm trying to tell you is that however it exists,
If if
the code for it would have
if,
to.
if we found incontrovertible evidence that there is some form of life on Mars, would that falsify your belief? Because you seem to be arguing that life could only have arisen um, by supernatural acts.
I never said that. I never said that. I'm trying to.
That's why I said it seems. That's why I said it seems. That's what you're arguing.
Huh?
Could life have arisen naturally?
I just want to let this guy know I'm gonna put him in timeout for 10 minutes for
Ooh,
basically
me?
slandering me in the chat. No, not you, not
Oh,
you. Somebody in the chat was just basically name calling. And if people want to disagree with me in the chat, that's absolutely fine. But the personal attacks are not going to be tolerated. So whoever was doing that, I'm going to put you in timeout. And if you want to make a comment after you're done, that's fine. But excuse me, but just don't insult me or anyone else. All right.
Right. So do you believe that life can only arise through supernatural intervention, or could it arise naturally on, say, Mars, or could the precursors to life arise naturally in comets or in interstellar space?
Well, I don't have any reason to believe that the precursors of life can form naturally anywhere. I don't have a good reason, I would say.
Then why? Why do we find them? We find
That's a great
formaldehyde.
question. That's
Yeah,
a great question.
we find formaldehyde.
Okay, that's fine. But that's the formaldehyde is just
It's
probably,
an organic
yes.
compound. It's an
But you have
organic
to realize
compound.
for living things to exist, there needs to be DNA, RNA, and proteins. And I'm trying to get you there. So the amino, okay, sorry. Amino acids that are used in life, they do not form naturally on Earth as far as we can tell. Can you agree to that?
Yeah, I don't know if that's true or not.
Well, okay, do you have any evidence to the contrary?
No, but
Okay.
I don't trust your ability to survey the literature and come to a correct conclusion.
Well, as far again, so I haven't seen any evidence that amino acids can even form naturally in any earthly environment. If scientists want to,
then you have these ideological blinkers on. So
no, it has nothing to do with ideology. It has to do with evidence. There's no evidence of it. Like they would have to show amino acids that are used in life forming naturally on Earth. They haven't done that.
Yeah, we do that in laboratories.
No,
again,
where?
We can measure gravity. We can measure gravity in the laboratory. That means it exists outside of the laboratory. If we do things in a laboratory, it means it can exist outside of the laboratory because that's how nature works.
All right, so I'm trying to get to a very, very basic series of things to agree upon. The amino acids that exist in life, that life uses, scientists do not find them in nature on Earth. Can you agree to that? We
literally did the experiment back in the earliest one, back in the 50s, right?
Are you talking about
yes,
no,
that's the earliest one. That's the earliest one. Obviously, there have been many since, but that's an earliest one. They reproduced the conditions of a reducing atmosphere and showed that amino acids can form under those conditions. What the fuck?
That was the Miller-Urey experiment.
Yes.
Hold on. Do you know how many amino acids are used in living organisms?
So did they produce amino
Brenda,
acids or not?
You're not answering my.
Your claim is that amino acids can't form, right? And they showed that they can.
They have since concluded that the Miller-Urey experiment does not accurately present any atmosphere that existed in Earth's history. And even if it did, they were only able to produce a small, excuse me, and this is why I was asking that. They were only able to produce a small fraction of the amino acids that are used in life. So
you agree that some amino acids can be formed naturally?
Well, yes, they can.
There you go. That's all I need is there's a natural process for the origin of life. What the hell?
No, I'm sorry.
It's not supernatural. If it was necessarily supernatural, there's no experiment you could ever conduct that would generate amino acids, right?
The problem for you is I asked you if you know how many there is a specific number that is the correct answer. How many amino acids are used in life? Do you know how many?
Yeah, I don't know.
Okay, the number is there are 20. There are 20.
Okay.
The Miller-Urey experiment, okay, I'm going to explain why that's a problematic. The Miller-Urey experiment is basically one of the best that the naturalists have. And
I don't know if that's true or not. I don't know if that's true or not. That was in the 1950s. What? That was 75 years ago.
Yeah, they haven't gotten much since then. But what I'm trying to tell you is in the Miller-Urey experiment, they were only able to produce probably 3 or 4 of the 20.
Yeah, so
that you need all 20.
It
the old
refutes
20.
your claim that amino acids necessarily come about through supernatural processes.
I never ever claimed that. I never
That,
claimed that during the course of
so
this
so
meeting.
you agree that amino acids can come about through natural processes,
I've never stated otherwise. What I'm trying to tell you is
right?
that when we look at Earth, at life as it exists today, it appears that all living organisms use the same 20 amino acids, and they
That's evidence
basically,
for that's evidence for common descent.
okay, so the problem with that is the only a small handful of the 20 have been produced in any sort of naturalistic experiment. So where did the
Yeah,
other like 15 or so come from? We don't know. So you don't even
yeah. I don't
have,
know.
right, neither does anyone else. So the
Does
problem
that
is
mean
there's,
it's impossible? That doesn't mean it's impossible. It doesn't follow
I,
that it's impossible.
I
The
never said
fact that
it's
we can,
impossible.
yeah.
I
So it
said,
is
but the
possible. If
problem,
it's not, if it's
no,
not impossible, it's possible, right?
there's no evidence that it's possible
Yeah, but
because
if it's not impossible, it's possible, right?
I mean, it can't be definitively ruled out, but it also at the
Right,
same
right.
time,
So you can't rule out that it's possible.
I can't rule out that it's possible. Yes, I would agree with that. But
Right.
I also have no reason to believe that it happened that way, because for life to exist as it is, and there's no reason to think it could be any other way, you need all 20 amino acids, but they've never gotten more than a couple of them at a time in any
Right. So,
experiment.
so the fact that we can produce amino acids through mechanisms in the laboratory that plausibly replicate what we think the early environment of the Earth would have been is evidence that that is the path that life took.
No, no, no,
It
because
is evidence. It increases evidence is that which increases the probability of a scientific proposition being true. And right, so those experiments increase the probability that the proposition is true. It counts as evidence.
yeah, it counts as evidence, but it goes from like one in a million bazillion to like slightly more than that. Because for
Law of
again,
large numbers. Law of large numbers. You have enough stuff working together all at the same time, you're going to get those small probabilities, right?
the problem,
You have
no,
a
actually,
pool. There are trillions upon
no,
trillions of molecules in even
Brenda,
even a pool of water. In a
you don't
pool of
have the right
water, there
model.
are trillions upon trillions of molecules in there, right? So they're working in parallel. They're not in series. They're in parallel, right? And there
Right?
could be thousands of pools, each of them containing trillions of molecules, and in all of that, small probabilities are likely.
Wow, you just told it a very
Small
interesting.
prob Yeah, small. That's
You
the
just
law of
told a
large numbers.
very,
Small
you just
prob.
told a very inspiring story that has zero
Right.
evidence to support it.
Right. So this weekend, somebody's going to probably win the lottery, right? Even though the odds are like 1 in 10 to the 85th power, right? Even so, even though it's 1 in 10 to the 85th, somebody is very likely to win that lottery. If not this week, then next week, right? So events that have a small probability are likely when you have millions or thousands of people doing the same thing. They're scratching off those numbers. Somebody is going to win. That's the
Hold on
law of
one
large
second.
numbers. That's the law of large numbers. That's something you don't seem to understand because
The problem, no,
you're a motivated reasoner. You're a motivated reasoner. You're
no,
reasoning backwards from your conclusion.
incorrect.
That's what you're doing.
I have based everything I said. You need to go back and listen to everything I
I've
have said.
destroyed every point that you've
No, you
brought
haven't.
up. Every one of them I've showed. I've walked
First
you
of
through it.
all,
I've walked you
you're
through it.
not
You're
letting me talk.
concussed. You're concussed.
You're not letting me talk. Can you please let me talk? All right, thank you. You are basically extrapolating to an incredibly unjustified amount to basically believe what it is you believe about the possibility of what natural processes can achieve. Because I just explained to you that life needs 20 amino acids.
Uh-huh.
You are pointing to an experiment which doesn't even really reflect early Earth's atmosphere
Yeah.
that produced a small number of the 20,
Yeah.
all of which are necessary. And you are
Yeah.
saying, therefore, it is possible. No, actually, it's not. You have to have all 20 for it to be possible. So it's still not possible. With three or four, you can't do it.
Right.
So
Are you
the
saying
sci-
it's not possible? Are you saying it's not possible?
according to the evidence that I've seen, yes, science has demonstrated
Right.
that there's no reason to believe that it happened
So,
this way.
so we don't have conclusive evidence, but we have strong evidence that there could be life on Mars. How do you account for that? If it's not possible, how do you account for life to be on Mars?
Probably by the same mechanism that whatever happened on Earth must have
The
taken place
the
on Mars.
the well-known numerical method known as bullshittery.
Uh,
That was a joke. That was a nerd joke. So you should laugh at that.
I'm gonna.
That was funny. Come on.
I
That
mean,
was funny.
it wasn't bad. It wasn't bad. But here's the thing: once you get once you get to that first whatever it was organism, self-replicating, universal common ancestor, you have to get from there to what we observe today as life. So that whatever happened had to have happened. There had to be a number of mutations that occurred from
I don't
that.
think that's true. I don't think that whatever happens has to have happened. I'm not a
Well,
necessitarian. Yeah, I think that other things could have happened.
yeah,
Different pathways. You
yeah.
know.
Well, no, there's only one history. Okay, so you can't say it happened other than the way it
Yeah,
happened.
but
All right.
there's other possible histories. For
Yeah.
instance, humans can't, many humans can't, we can't metabolize vitamins. We can't produce our own vitamin C, but it could, and the other great apes can. So, but it could have happened that humans could metabolize their own, or create their own vitamin
Oh
C.
yeah.
That's a possible history. So the fact that it happened that we can't doesn't mean it couldn't have happened.
Uh, well, for you, whatever happened, that is the way that it happened. Okay,
Yeah, that's
so
just a tautology. It doesn't say anything.
what I'm trying to say that is it had to go from whatever that original genetic code was to the human, and the pathway must exist. All right.
Sure,
So
we know that. We know that
right.
because we're here. We know
So
that
there,
because we're
right,
here.
exactly. So that places severe limitations at that point. You can't say large numbers and things like that.
Why not?
You have to work within certain constraints. For instance, you can't have more mutations than there are organisms that have ever existed. Okay,
Yeah, but you
right?
understand that mutations can have a large, wide-ranging effects on the phenotype, right?
I understand that, but you still have to have the right mutations to get the right genetic code to get the right protein. There's no way around it. All right.
Well,
Uh,
you don't have to have specifically our genetic code. There's a possible world where humans exist who have a slightly different genetic code than our genetic code.
yes,
There's
that's true. But
different sequences of DNA. So we don't have to, so that's what I mean when I say you're arguing backwards. You're taking the humans as we are now and arguing that there's the probability of us arising is very high. But the fact is there are possible worlds where humans has slightly different outcomes, and those are just as equally possible. So that's what I mean when I say that you're a motivated reasoner, because you're arguing backwards from what is to the past instead of from the past to what is.
there's a very big problem with what you're proposing, and that's actually when you understand the science of proteins. What you realize is that when one protein to be functional, it has to operate in conjunction with other proteins, and it's basically like when you think about a machine that has multiple parts, all the parts have to fit together, or the machine doesn't work. So if
Yeah,
once you put together one part of the machine, all the other parts of the machine have to be designed a certain way in order to be functional with that first piece of the machine, right?
yeah, but the precursors to that machine could
Doesn't
have been
matter what the
different.
precursors for. Once you
Yeah, it
get once
does
you
because the proposed mechanism is for instance, that some protein arrangement or arrangement of proteins, right, had a certain function, and then the side functions gradually fell away because they didn't really contribute, and so you get a very efficient at the end. You get a very efficient, very uh, compact work, which which has precursors that had different outcomes, and they can show that. You can show, for instance, that
All right.
the flagellum has functional precursors that were not
Okay.
they're not as lean and as efficient as the modern one. You don't have to jump from a bunch of proteins to the modern one. You go there by steps, and you prune away inefficient steps.
So is there an example of the
flagellum.
the flagellum in a
Yes, there's been plenty
different
of
state?
study. Yes, there are all out there.
So
That's why
there's they have
that's why
example. Hold on, let me ask the question.
yeah, that's why creationists don't bring it up anymore, because they've been
They
wrecked.
do. They do, because but
Well,
is
the
there an
dumb ones
example?
do. Dumb ones do.
Is there an example of the organism with a less efficient flagellum in the like fossil record somewhere?
I don't think you would expect to find a flagellum in a fossil record.
Ah, so the flagellum, it wasn't always the way it is, but there's no evidence.
I don't know.
The answer is no. Yeah, as far as we know, these what is it? What is it? It's not the E. coli. What is the organism that
I think
Behe used?
I don't know.
Oh, is a paramecium?
Parameciums. Yeah, there's a number
Whatever.
of species.
There was.
Yeah.
We're talking about obviously Michael Behe's flagellum. There was an organism that he used that had a flagellum.
Yeah.
And the atheist told the exact story that you just parroted, which is that
they're actually published. They're published studies, dude. They're published studies.
Yeah, it's very efficient now.
Not a story.
But a long time ago, there were other paramecium that had less effective flagella, and they just got better over time.
Yeah.
So where's the evidence of the original paramecia with less efficient?
So what's more likely that evolution took a series of steps towards the modern flagellum, or that your sky daddy stuck his finger in the soup and mixed things around? Which one
Brenda,
is more likely?
I just want to talk to you about the science. You're the one who's suggesting.
Well, what's the proposed alternative?
I don't think I need. I just want to know what is the actual
doesn't Behe propose that God mucks about in the real world?
But you're the one suggesting that there was a precursor paramecium that had a less efficient flagellum. So I want to know, where's the evidence of that, or do you not have any?
I've seen the study. I've seen the published, but it's been a very long time. I don't remember the details, so I'm not going to go out and make definitive statements, this or that. It's simply that I can simply go with there's a plausible pathway that takes us from a very simple engine that rotates to the more complicated one that we have, right?
Yeah, you can imagine a simpler engine that. But again,
what's the alternative? What's the alternative? The alternative is that God mucks about in the real world, right?
Okay, well maybe that's the explanation, because there's no
not an explanation. Supernatural explanations, no, they're not. They have no explanatory power. They don't explain anything.
Actually, that is the explanation. You're saying that you can't say God is an explanation, because that's just. You can't say that's an explanation, because it's not an explanation. Yes, it is.
That's right. No, it's not. It doesn't have explanatory power. Explanatory power. No, it doesn't. What's the mechanism by which God used?
The mechanism is God is an intelligent agent that can manipulate reality.
Exactly. Magic. You're appealing to magic.
That's not magic. It's intelligence.
You said no. Intelligent magic, right? He speaks words. He speaks things into existence.
Wait, are you saying that intelligence is magic?
No, I'm saying that intelligent intervention into the world is magic. You need a mechanism, otherwise you don't have an explanation.
Intelligence is the mechanism. Do you not understand?
No, it's not. No, it's not. You need a mechanism.
Why are you a priori ruling out that intelligence can be a
mechanism? When I think of an apple and I visualize an apple doesn't appear in front of me. That's why.
Maybe that's not how God. We're not saying that God just like snapped his fingers and it was.
Well, what was the mechanism then?
The mechanism is that God can, just like humans, manipulate reality and do things using the laws of physics.
How? He doesn't have a corporal. Does he have a corporal body?
Maybe he does it through his mind. He can manipulate matter, energy through his mind and make it move around. I don't know.
How can a mind manipulate matter? How is that possible?
Well, that's what human minds do. They manipulate matter. So why can't God's
No,
mind
we
do it?
don't. My mind doesn't manipulate matter.
It manipulates the matter in your own body, doesn't it?
My mind is the activity of my brain, right? It sends
Mhm.
signals to muscles. The muscles contract and stretch and manipulate the world around me, right? Right. So
So,
mind isn't an incorporeal cloud that's hovering above my head.
are you sure about
It's not
that?
so. Yes, I am sure about that
How do you know that?
because there's no mechanism for the mind to interfere with the body.
You don't know that. That's a
Yes, I
belief you have.
do. Yes, I do because the world is causally closed, right?
Again, these are claims, but how do you know that you can believe that? But how do you absolutely know that there's not a mind that's able to interact with your body to make it
What
do
would the
things?
mechanism be? How would it do that?
Just because we don't understand, like we didn't know how lightning was created 2,000 years, it doesn't mean there wasn't a mechanism. Just because we don't understand how the mind interacts with the body now doesn't mean there's not a mechanism.
That's
Just
just an appeal
again,
to ignorance. That's an appeal to ignorance
okay, well,
fallacy.
but we can observe the effects of what's happening and hypothesize that
Yeah.
based on what we're
It-
observing, when I think something, my body
yeah.
reacts and it does the thing that my mind tells it to
When I
do.
think
So
something,
there
when I
must be
think
a
something, yeah, when I think things, you can put me in an MRI machine and scan my brain, and you can see my thoughts. You can see the neurons activating. Then they generate a signal, and the signal goes to my arm, and I raise my arm.
right. So there are
Yeah.
they realize that there are multiple potential explanations for that. So one explanation is that your mind, which does exist non-locally,
That's your
non-contingent.
claim. That's your
I
claim.
no, I'm giving you
When I
one.
think of Paris, when I think of Paris, is my mind in Paris?
It doesn't have to be. Your mind
But
generates
you said
concepts.
non-locally, though. You said non-locally. When I think of Paris, is my mind in
What I'm
Paris?
what I'm trying to say is that your mind is existing independently of your brain. So it exists independently of your brain. It basically your mind is what thinks. It's the part of you that
Right.
thinks, and it sends the signal to the brain, and that's what's detected by the MRI
You
machine.
said it's independent. How does it send a signal if it's causally
Good question.
independent?
We don't know, but it does it somehow.
Well, it can't. It can't if it's
Why can't it?
independent. Because that's what it means to be independent. It means that there's no
No,
causal connection between the mind and the
that's
body.
not true. Independent
Yes,
just
that's
means
what
that
it means to be independent.
independent simply means that it exists without basically being entirely a product of the brain itself. So the mind has its own existence,
What is it
independent,
made of? What is it made of?
whatever it is. Well, I don't know. I'm just saying that
Whatever it is.
yeah, the mind is
It's
made of the mind substance. We can just call it the mind substance. We don't know what it
Oh,
is.
really? What is that? Is that a charge, mass, spin?
Could
What is
be.
mind
Yeah,
substance?
it could be some sort of matter that we don't even know exists yet because we don't have the
Oh,
machinery or the
but
technology to
we
detect
we
it.
but we do have all the machinery to detect anything that would be possible in here our at our
No, we
scale.
don't. No, we
Yeah,
don't. We actually,
we
there's an
literally
entire,
do. We literally do. There are studies
well,
about that. There's
no,
literally studies about that. Yes, there are.
we know for a fact that the massive part of our universe can't be detected by our current
Yeah, but that
technology.
doesn't interfere. That doesn't interfere with us. I'm talking about us
Hold on, hold
at the
on,
macro scale, not the quantum scale, and not the
hold on.
cosmological scale.
What I'm trying to tell you is there's a term in cosmology called dark matter. We don't know what it is, and we can't observe
Yeah,
it
yeah,
directly, but we
yeah.
know it exists because it clearly is
Right.
affecting the behavior of the
Yeah,
celestial
it's some kind
bodies.
of particle. I'm not talking about
Right.
particles. I'm talking about us human
Well,
beings at the macro scale,
so
not at the quantum scale.
you admit there are probably things in reality that we can't detect with our current technology, but we can observe
I
their
said that.
effects.
I said that from the
Okay,
beginning, right? That
maybe.
at our scale, there are no forces or particles left to discover. That's what I said
Well,
at
we
this
don't know what
scale.
they could be just they could be macro scale particles that we just can't detect, but are
No, no.
nevertheless having an impact. Well, okay,
They
so you
just
just don't
weakly,
believe
they
that.
just weakly, they just weakly interact with other matter, kind of like neutrinos.
Okay,
Very,
well,
very weakly interact, right?
right. Well, the whole point of dark matter is we don't know what it is, but it's clearly there. So it could be that this could be some of the substance
Yes.
that the mind is
Yeah.
made of, something like
The mind
that.
is made
Something
out of a substance that barely interacts at all, right?
that right, but it still exists and it can interact, right?
Your body right now is being penetrated by neutrinos being emitted from the sun, and
Mhm.
you have to build vast underground tanks of waters lined with thousands of photoreceptors in order to catch a single event within months and stuff like that. So you think that is going to account for how I raise my arm? What the fuck?
Not. I didn't say neutrinos were the cause. But I did suggest that it would be something that we cannot currently detect. But the point
Right.
is, there's reason to believe that such things exist.
No,
Scientists
there,
admit it
because
says.
it would interact weakly, so you couldn't rely on raising your arm. If that's what mind
No,
substance is, that's what mind substance is. You can't. There's no causal interaction there. It's a extremely weak one.
well, we know that there is a causal interaction because we see that it is having an impact on the movement of celestial bodies. So we know that it is having a significant impact,
I'm
and we
I'm
know
talking
that
about
it's
mind. I'd rather go back to mind stuff. Right. We
right.
know that
I am. I
mind.
want.
There's no such thing as mind stuff. Mind is just mental states are just brain states. It's just the states that brains take. That's the more parsimonious answer. Yours
It,
is fantastical and multiplies entities without justification.
well, we don't know what's happening, so we can theorize the various possibilities. Like you can't just say, "Well, mine's more parsimonious, therefore it's true." No, that's not
Yeah,
correct.
that yes, I can say that. I can say that.
Well, until well, you can't say that the parsimonious answer is always the correct one. It is
No, but it's
probably
more likely. Again, it's
well,
likelihood. That's how science works. Science
that's
works by degrees of confidence. It isn't absolute, right? So we say until shown otherwise, you need to show
well,
that there's this mind stuff that is incorporeal that and nevertheless interacts causally with the material world, and then you're not going to be able to do that because it's bollocks.
I would argue that our experience proves that that must necessarily be the case. Like if you want to deny that,
Necessary.
yeah,
It's
because
so
if
the
you want to deny
contrary is what's the contradiction? What's the contradiction?
the contradiction is this: if you want to say that the mind is just brain states, well, then you're gonna have to deny the possibility of rational thinking at all, because
Why?
chemical interactions don't care to produce rational thoughts. They're gonna produce whatever is based on chemical necessity.
So
So whatever,
they can produce rational results then,
no,
right?
they can't. They're gonna produce
Of
whatever
course they can.
is
So
they no
you're saying that
they can't they can't they
calculators can't produce the correct result to the inputs?
Well, what I'm trying to say is when you're talking about abstract concepts like thoughts and like rationalizing and generating ideas about the future, we have to be able to do this to survive. And brain states don't care to basically perpetuate an organism. They just are going to generate whatever thought.
They
Well,
absolutely
no, they aren't. No,
care.
they aren't. No, they aren't
Absolutely.
because
What are you
the
talking
laws of
about?
hold on. The laws of nature are going to determine whatever thought is produced by a chemical interaction. It's not going to
Yeah.
be it's not going to be dependent on what the chemicals are. Chemicals can't even perceive
What do you
anything.
mean it's
So
not dependent on the chemicals? It's absolutely going to be dependent on the
I,
chemicals.
it's gonna yes, it is going to be dependent on the chemicals, but the chemicals aren't going to adjust to like my. They're not going to say, oh, there's a rock coming at me.
Yeah.
I want to preserve
Yeah.
this assemblage of
Yeah.
molecules called my body because
Yeah.
the chemicals don't care that they're in the
You're
shape of a
right.
body.
You're right. They won't just adjust. You know what does adjust?
What's that?
The population of species that does that, right? Because the one that didn't flinch, he's dead. He doesn't
No.
reproduce. The other
Well, how
ones,
did
the ones that did flinch, they get to reproduce.
well the point is they can't flinch because they're basically prescribed the same laws of nature as the one who
No,
didn't.
they're not. That's not
The
how
chemi-
populations
I
work.
mean,
Populations have wide varying degrees in behavior.
the laws of nature are not going to differ between individuals in a
They
population.
do. They do. We observe it,
Oh my gosh. You think the
right?
laws of
Any population, you're going to observe diverse patterns of behavior
Brenda,
and
Brenda,
appearances,
listen.
right? That's
You're not listening.
evolution. That's
You're not
evolution.
you're not listening. Listen to what I'm saying. The laws of nature are going to apply the same for every single organism that exists in any population. So the law of gravity is not going to be different for one individual in a population as it is for another. Okay. The
Yeah, but
laws that The laws that govern.
Or if some of those individuals in a population have modified their carapace into wings, then they can fly.
We're going back to the discussion of the mind and how the mind has no ability to think rationally if it's completely dependent on chemical interactions. The chemical
Why?
interactions, because the chemicals in our brain, which are just atoms and molecules,
Yeah.
don't care about producing a thought that preserves the life of an organism. They don't
Yeah,
care
they
because
do.
they
They
can't.
do. They do
No,
care
no
because
atoms.
evolution
Atoms don't.
weeded out.
No,
Evolution weeded out all the individuals that didn't care.
no. Listen, it breaks down at the micro level, the microscopic level. The atoms in our bodies are not aware of anything.
Yeah,
They
nobody
don't
thinks they
care.
are. Nobody thinks they
Well,
are. We
that's
think it
right.
happens by natural selection.
So
The individuals that don't care enough to survive don't survive. So that everybody
I
that's
think,
left does survive because they care about surviving.
Brenda, you clearly don't care about listening to what other people are saying, and that's why you are having such a.
You're accustomed to having people defer to you.
I understand that, but you aren't understanding the severe philosophical and scientific problem with what you're suggesting, and it's
I'm
because you're not
suggesting natural
listening.
selection. Natural selection, there's nothing. What's the problem with natural selection? I've been describing that too. You have a population of beetles. Some are different colors, and those different colors blend in with the environment better than others. So birds come along, they pick away the ones that they can see that don't blend in, leaving those that do blend in to reproduce. That's natural selection. Welcome to evolution.
There's a really. I'm trying to get you to see how you're thinking at a level that is based on human perceptions of the world and trained and conditioning of what things do. I'm trying to explain to you that at a philosophical level. When you think down to the atomic level and the laws of nature governing those interactions and the nature of those particles, none of that is actually even possible.
That's not
Because
true. That's
yes,
not true because
it is
because
because
same laws of nature, the same laws of nature that made some of the population of beetles blend in with the environment, those same laws operate on those individuals that don't blend in with the
okay,
environment.
the
It's the
laws of
same. It's the same laws. It's the same laws. They're just implemented differently, right? Some of them stand out from the environment and get eaten by predators.
the problem is that all of the organisms in existence, just like rocks and water and stars and stuff like that, are deterministically caused. Their motion is deterministically caused by the laws of nature. So nothing is, according to your worldview, nothing can actually think. Nothing can actually act in a way to preserve itself. Because to
Thinking
think,
is the
hold
laws
on,
of nature.
let me finish. Let me finish. Thinking is an epiphenomenon of neural activity. It doesn't actually have any causal effect on the world. It is just something
Right?
that is an epiphenomenon. So the only thing that actually matters.
Again,
Hold on, let me finish. I just want to finish. The only thing that actually matters in your materialistic worldview is the laws of chemistry and physics.
yeah, and
And
I call
the
that reasoning. I call that reasoning.
right.
I could set up a set of valves and water pipes, and I can produce a thinking machine.
No, you can't because the thing it has to
Yes,
have
you
a mind.
can. Yes, you can.
So can it? So
You can set up a series of valves and pipes, and you can produce a computer, a thinking machine. They think. Rationality isn't a supernatural thing; it's a natural thing due to cause and effect.
so if I throw a rock at that computer, is it gonna adjust itself and get out of the way, or
If it's sufficiently complicated, yeah.
what it's going to do is it's going to follow the laws of nature. So we've basically figured
Yeah.
out how to create these
So
electrical flow
you're
circuits.
just gonna slide on by that, right?
No,
If it's
no,
if
because what you have to
I
understand
made
is
I made the pipes and the valves incredibly small, and I fitted them within inside a human skull. But it's all water pipes and water valves that implement computational logic, binary logic, right? So if you throw a rock at that, and this water valve brain, it evolved, and if you throw a rock at it, it dodges because it learned to do that by evolution.
so is the assemblage of pipes and valves capable of doing something other than the laws of physics would determine that it do?
No, but the
Okay,
things
thank
that
you.
it can do is extremely broad. Like it can
It can,
reproduce,
but it can't.
it
It
can think,
can't.
it can write poetry, and it can dodge
Yeah,
rocks.
but all of these things are illusions of something deeper, which is that all these things are really doing is just an assemblage of molecules following the laws of nature.
Yeah. So
Laws of it. So these things aren't actually thinking or doing anything. They're just moving around
no,
in
but no,
space.
but what it does is thinking. That's what
No,
it
it
is
can't.
doing. It is
No, but
thinking. Yes, it
Brenda,
is. It is
Brenda,
thinking.
if
I am a
how
thinking
how
thing.
does so how does thinking make the molecules in the assemblage move differently than the laws of physics would determine that it do otherwise?
It
How what is
doesn't. It
okay?
doesn't. It produces
Exactly, exactly.
it produces A rather than B, right? You have a series of inputs.
But
They're
all right,
weighted
let's
inputs, just like in an LLM. They're weighted inputs, and then according to how the neural network was trained, you get a certain output, right?
all
That's
right. Let's
thinking.
try it this
That's
way.
thinking.
Let's
There's no supernatural mystery. There's no supernatural substance, and there's no supernatural
right.
mystery, and there's
So
no need for the mind-body connection problem. The mind simply is the activity of the brain.
all right, Brian. Let's break it down to a very simplified scenario and then grow from there. Okay. Let's say there's just two molecules. All right, in a hypothetical universe with two molecules in it, and these molecules have similar laws of physics to what we have today. The nature of these molecules is that they are attracted to one another. Okay, so when they come in proximity to one another, they're going to come together because they're attracted to one another. There's nothing else they can do. This is the laws of physics. You see what I'm saying? Do you understand this hypothetical universe? Is it simple for
Yeah.
you? Can
Yeah,
the molecule
that's how we
can
create
the
transistors. That's how we create
can
transistors
let me ask you
with a
this.
gate they're gated. They're gated,
In
right?
this universe,
Positive and negative charges.
cool. In this universe, can the molecules in question, the two of them, do anything other than simply be attracted to one another and come together in a bond?
No, and neither
Okay.
can the transistors in a
Exactly.
computer, and neither do the neurons in my brain. Nevertheless, we still get thinking out of that because they're not the whole of the thing. You don't need a mysterious spiritual substance that permeate things, right? It's just the collective activity of billions and billions of neurons.
All right, I'm gonna try to keep you. You have a really hard time following a line of thought that I'm trying to use to
I
demonstrate to
thought
you.
I think I understood
Hold
you
on,
completely, and
you did, but then
I
you
gave
went
you
on
a
a
decent
tangent.
reply.
All right, so in this universe with two molecules in it, the two molecules are never going to be able to do anything else
That's
besides
right.
go in a very straight
That's
line
right.
towards one another. There's no
Yeah, there are no
thinking.
is
There's
this the
no
only thing
hold
in the
on, hold on.
universe?
Let me talk. Let me talk. There's no thinking. There's no
That's right.
ability to think.
That's
They're
right.
not going to. One molecule isn't going to think and try to avoid the
That's
other
right.
molecule. Okay, so let's
That's right.
expand this to three molecules. Same thing.
Right.
It's all the same. They can't do anything besides do what they do according to the laws of nature. They're not going to go in a
Right.
different path. There's no this molecule can
Right.
go in a multiplicity of pathways. No, there's one pathway in
Right.
this universe, and
Yeah.
it's toward the other molecules.
Yeah.
Okay, and
So what's the point?
the
What's the
reason
point?
for this is when you start expanding this model to include a universe with many molecules, what you'll find is that there is one determined path for all molecules in the universe based on the initial conditions and the laws of nature themselves as things play out. So you can't have a situation where one molecule was going to do this thing, but then it thought about something and did something else. No, it's going to follow the same
Yeah,
path
that's not how
according to the
brains
laws
think. That's not how brains think.
because I never said it was because it can't. Brain according to in that model, brains can't actually think. Now they can
What's
produce
your definition for what counts as thinking? What's your definition for thinking?
the definition of rational thought is being able to basically generate thoughts according
That's
to an agency of mind that would be dictated by something other than chemical necessity.
right.
So
So
if you have
your definition of thinking is it's thinking is thinking. That was your definition.
well, you can't that can't happen. You can't have
Thinking is having
rational
thoughts. Thinking is having
Well,
thoughts, right?
there's different kinds of thinking. In a materialistic universe, rational thinking is not possible
Can you
because
define thinking without using the word thinking?
it's basically to generate a thought. But rational thinking
That's
is
describing
is
what happens. What is thinking? What is it?
it can be, it doesn't necessarily have to be rational because you could envision a world where, like materialists
Yeah,
propose,
but what is
well,
thinking? What is it? What is it
thinking,
in your
as I said,
world?
in my world, it's the mind acting and basically generating thoughts independent of chemical necessity. So
Yeah. Why
it's
should anybody
usually
believe that? Why should anybody believe that?
because in a materialistic universe, that kind of thinking is impossible. Because as I've said,
But you haven't shown that. You haven't shown that
well, the
because
reason
I have a different definition of what thinking is than you.
let me show you.
I
I'm
don't
trying
accept
to.
your definition. I think thinking is a rational process involving logical operations from input to output. That's what I think thinking
So
is.
does can the thinking that in the way that you envision it basically manipulate matter in such a
Yes,
way
because
that
it is matter. Yes.
so the matter is going to basically follow a prescribed path based on the laws of physics and chemistry, right?
Well, possibly. Yeah. Yeah.
Possibly, or what? Yes, well,
Well,
that has to be.
I'm not a necessitarian, so I don't really buy
Wait,
that.
so do you
I
believe that
think
the
there's a
law?
lot of randomness. I think there's a lot of randomness in the
Think
world too.
there's a lot of randomness. So there
Yes,
are, but basically, as far as we can tell, so you don't. So do you disagree with the statement that the laws of physics and chemistry will always determine the motion of particles and matter?
no, I think there's a lot of randomness. There are random events.
Randomness.
Yeah, they're fundamentally random.
So do you think that one molecule can like defy the law of gravity, whereas all the other molecules have to follow the law of gravity?
No, I don't think that, but I do think
Okay. So
that, for instance,
all of the molecules in existence in atoms, according to you, have to obey the laws of nature that govern them at all times, right?
sure.
Okay. So if the laws of chemistry, electromagnetism, gravity, all these forces determine that a molecule go a certain way, then thinking isn't going to change that course of the pathway because the pathway is ultimately determined by the laws of nature themselves, right?
Yeah, that's just you
Okay.
reverting to your definition of thinking. My definition of thinking is that the logical operation of my neurons simply is thinking. That's what thinking
All right,
is
but
is the activity of my neural networks.
something happened with your audio. It's kind of
What
your
is
audio is I don't know what
is it
happened to
still
it.
is it still
It
okay?
is. There's some sort of like buzzing sound when you speak. I don't know what the problem is.
I'm sorry
It
about that.
just it literally just started. But here's the thing, Brenda.
That's weird.
It is weird. You can go back
I'm
and
not
listen.
just for your information. It's not. I'm not hearing it on my end. You might want to ask
I
your listeners if they hear it.
you can go back and watch the YouTube video and maybe you'll hear it there. But here's the thing. Unfortunately, my time is limited.
That's fine. That's
And
fine.
I'm going to end the stream now.
That's
But
fine.
you
I
are
hope you
welcome.
understand. I hope you understand that that I consider this sort of like a game of chess, right? Where I give the best, the strongest, the most possible responses, and this isn't personal. I'm not making personal attacks. I'm making cutthroat chess moves. You
All right.
understand that?
No,
I go for
no,
the
you
throat. I go for the throat. I dethrone your queen. I killed your queen. I disemboweled her and laid her at your feet. Arg, arg, arg.
I will say you were way more civil than a lot of people tend to be, and you did
I
a
try
good
to be.
job.
I try to be.
You did a good job of sticking to the argumentation, to sticking
Yeah,
to discussing ideas
yeah,
as opposed to hurling
yeah.
invectives
Maybe
and things
someday
like
we
that.
can talk about evolution.
We can. You are welcome back. You are certainly welcome back, and
Okay.
maybe we will get to that. But I until
All
next
righty.
time, Brenda. Thank you for
Ta
joining.
ta.
Bye. Wow. Well, I will say this. I think that was a really great conversation for people to go back and listen to and to think about who is actually basing his or her ideas on what is demonstrable, what is provable, what is logical. I really wish more people could hear that conversation and go back and analyze it and think about the argumentations of both sides and whose is more likely to be to represent reality and who's actually basing the belief on what's observable, what was demonstrable. I got to give credit to Brenda. Brenda did a really good job of basically remaining civil and talking about the argument at hand. But I think Brenda made a lot. This is my opinion. Brenda was making a lot of mistakes. Mistakes that to me are extremely obvious. And it was kind of hard to talk to Brenda because Brenda was constantly interrupting me and basically going on tangents. So it was hard to stay focused on a single line of thought for any period of time. But there are serious, how should I put this? Brenda's presuppositions prevent, I'm going to say Brenda, from seeing the glaring holes in the argumentation being put forward. The baseless assumptions, the appeals to basically assuming things are true without actually being able to demonstrate that they are true. Logical fallacies all over the place. I mean, it's hard to really even know where to begin. Saying something's basically holding on to beliefs because they're within the realm of theoretical possibility, but when you actually look at the science, there's no actual evidence for it, which is indistinguishable from the criticism of religion that these people put forward. So I really highly recommend people. I have to end the stream, so I won't be able to do an analysis at this point. The stuff about the mind just baffles me. That Brenda can't see how in that materialistic worldview, there's only one possible course of motion for all matter in the universe. And no thought is going to be able to change the course of the molecules in my body. The molecules in my body are just like the molecules of water in a river flowing downhill in that worldview. There's no mind to guide them. So they can't adjust themselves apart from what the laws of physics would dictate that they do. So if there's a giant rock rolling towards me, the molecules in my body don't care that they're in the shape of a human body and the human body is going to be destroyed by that rock if the body doesn't move. The molecules in the rock don't care if it gets smashed into a million little itty bitty pieces and makes 1,000 little rocks. So the fact that I have a mind that cares about preserving my body, my quote unquote life, that's just an epiphenomenon of matter in my body. But the matter in my body can only move according to the laws of physics. So if they get smashed by the rock, it's just a smashed body that has no basically worth besides that. It's going to disintegrate. And the molecules in my body don't care about whether they're in the body or in a decomposed state or in a rock or a star, a moon, a river, a puddle, a desert, a piece of sand, whatever. So the molecules in my brain aren't going to try to figure out how to stay together in the shape of a brain to preserve a body with the heart and lungs and skin and all that. They just can't do it. The molecules don't care. The molecules aren't aware. And when you start to realize that, you realize that for rational thinking to exist, it cannot simply be a materialistic universe, a naturalistic universe where just the laws of physics determine everything in the course of action. There has to be a rational mind independent of the chemistry of the brain. And then evolution, well, as Brenda said, maybe we'll get to that another time. But I was going to walk Brenda down a path that Brenda just did not want to go. I was going to try to show Brenda the mathematical probabilistic impossibility of evolution. There's a video out there called The Information Enigma. It's about 20 minutes long. It's free on YouTube. And it shows you how unbelievably, mathematically impossible evolution is, according to the mutation and natural selection mechanism. It just can't have happened. And I was going to explain all that because Brenda doesn't have a very good understanding of protein chemistry and things like that. A little bit, more than your average person. But when you really understand it, you see how impossible it all is. It really is impossible. So then the question becomes, as Brenda asked, well, what's the explanation? Is it a sky daddy? Well, that would almost serve to be a better answer than the impossible theory being put forward by modern science. It's got to be something, right? We know that it was something. Well, it wasn't evolution. It wasn't mutations and natural selection. Where do we go from there? That's the question. Intelligence? What kind of intelligence? Was it aliens? Was it something else? Was it some disembodied mind? Who knows? But it wasn't evolution. It wasn't materialism. It wasn't naturalism. Could rule that out. But we have intelligent beings. We know that intelligence is a thing. So maybe it was some intelligent rational agent. It all ties together, folks. It all ties together. Just to wrap things up in the next couple of minutes here, I do plan on doing a semi-review of my debate with Charles Lemon Seminary. I probably may not review the debate itself, but I do want to speak out on the reaction or lack thereof in the Christian internetosphere, realm. I think it's quite interesting what's going on. But again, that's just me. Anyways, until next time, I hope people enjoyed the conversation. Please like and subscribe. And until next time, God bless.